So we're lucky to be moving on from all those endless tables from the last lesson. And when it came to the mid-2000s to the late 2000s, we were looking at different ways of applying styling. So the endless tables were out and divs and spans were in. So essentially there's two different types of content and two different types of elements. They can be inline or they can be block content. So with divs, they are block content. And with spans, they are inline content. And the difference is that the spans give us the ability, so when we refresh it, the spans can give us the ability to be inline. So if you line up a bunch of spans together, and if you line up a bunch of divs together, then you're going to see the big difference is that the divs take up that full block of content. I'm also going to apply some styling to the div. So I'm going to update the table styling to be the div styling so you can see where the borders are for the divs. And the divs essentially take up that full block of content. So even if you expand the size of the page, it's taking up that full block. They take up the full width, so they're also a div, as well as paragraphs. So they take up the full width, so they're also blocks. And along with the new HTML5 elements that are more semantic, so it means they have more meaning within the names of the elements, and we are going to be looking at those in the upcoming lesson, they're also going to be blocks. And then when it comes to inline elements, can be within line within the text, so they don't mess up the text structure, and you can easily create a tag, a span tag, and using the divs and the spans, this is where we brought styling into website design because they gave us the ability to create a container element that we could use in order to identify within our HTML code, and then we could accordingly apply styling as needed. So inline elements and a lot of the text ones, such as the small, are inline display properties. So they operate essentially the same way that we see with spans. They just simply are in line with the text. So there's no distinction, and there's unless the change of the font is different, you can't really tell that there's a separate element tag that's wrapping around that particular part of the text. So it doesn't have any additional properties. And images are inline. We saw the image gets placed to inline, so it doesn't take its own full block within the display. It's inline as well. And if you don't want any additional properties, if you just want a strict block level element, then you use a div. And if you want a strict inline to define a section of the content, then you can use a span. And the way that these are used afterwards with styling is that we can apply a class attribute, and we can distinguish between the different divs using classes, and then apply styling at the top to those divs so that we can see the different elements and we can select them from the page. Let's also do one more for the span so we can get a better feel for how the span displays. And I'll do a quick refresh. So the spans don't have any additional styling or spacing, and the divs take up that full line and that full block of code that's available within the display area. And classes can be added in as attributes, and then you can use them to identify them within styling.